Now, once again, Raymond Arroyo.
Welcome back to The World Over. After his Super Tuesday wins, Donald Trump continues to lead in the polls, but not all Republicans are buying those red baseball caps. Mitt Romney, Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, and others are piling on Trump this week. Is there a way to stop his rise? Joining me to discuss this and much more is public affairs consultant, presidential historian, and author of The Last Act, The Final Years and Emerging Legacy of Ronald Reagan. Craig Shirley, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Raymond.
Pleasure to see you. I have to play this sound for you to begin. This is Mitt Romney going on the attack. Let's face it, this is not Mitt's strong suit. I mean, he is a gentleman. It's let's roll it and we can talk.
Here's what I know. Donald Trump is a phony, a fraud. His promises are as worthless as a degree from Trump University. He's playing the members of the American public for suckers. He gets a free ride to the White House, and all we get is a lousy hat. His domestic policies would lead to recession. His foreign policies would make America and the world less safe. He has neither the temperament nor the judgment to be president.
Is that effective? No. Craig Shirley?
No, it's not. First of all, Mitt Romney's not been very effective ever beyond the attack. It comes across as Sylvester the cat, quite honestly. Second of all, is that he's missing the point. He says Donald Trump represents a force in American politics, represents a populist, anti-establishment force, and he's talking about Trump University and hats and things like that, and it doesn't resonate with most people.
Here's my question. Does this help the Republican Party, having the establishment, first of all, train all of its guns on the front runner?
Right.
Doesn't this damage whoever the nominee is?
No, it does just the opposite. You know, this reminds me of 1980 with Reagan, is that the establishment, the Republican establishment, the media establishment, academia, was always against Ronald Reagan. They always made fun of Ronald Reagan. And as in 1980, as he was headed toward the nomination, they go into a full-throated panic. They say, we have to break the emergency glass. We have to pull Gerald Ford out of retirement, get him into the race. And Henry Kissinger went to see him. Dick Cheney went to see him. His old political advisors like Stu Spencer went to see out to California. They wanted to get Ford in the race only to stop Reagan from getting the nomination because they were terrified Reagan would lead the party to another Goldwater-like debacle in 1964. And obviously Reagan won, and it was an historic landslide, and it reframed the debate as far as Republican versus Democrat and conservative versus liberal. But the establishment is always afeared of threats to the establishment, and Donald Trump is a threat to the establishment.
Now, there are reports. I mean, this is almost history mirroring contemporary events. There are reports now, a source telling CNN, that Mitt Romney is considering challenging Trump to block him at the convention should nobody garner the needed delegates. Is this just fantasy talk?
Well, Donald Trump is not Catholic, but tonight he should light a candle and pray that Mitt Romney gets into the race.
Why?
Because it would divide, it would further dilute the anti-Trump vote, just the way that Gerald Ford, I mean, Reagan was begging Gerald Ford to get in the race in 1980 because he knew that Gerald Ford would divide the anti-Reagan vote remaining among George Bush and Howard Baker and other people. This will divide, further divide the anti-Trump vote. Trump is headed right now, all things being equal, to enough delegates for a first ballot nomination.
You think he's going to garner the delegates?
I think that,
square.
well, he's headed that way. You know, politics is rarely a straight line projection, but there is an element of Newtonian physics involved, and that is for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. And right now is that, you know, politics is also motion. Politics, you know, has a tendency to stay in motion once an object is in motion, and he's in motion.
So you think having Mitt Romney and also today John McCain, the two former and we should say failed Republican nominees for president, come out against Trump actually strengthens Trump?
Sure, that's right. Because
drives those working class voters back to him.
That's right, because like Nietzsche said, if it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. Well, the more the establishment attacks Donald Trump, the stronger he becomes and the stronger his anti-establishment message becomes.
I need to roll something for you. This is Marco Rubio also attacking Donald Trump. Watch this.
I will never quit. I will never stop until we keep a con man from taking over the party of Reagan and the conservative movement. He's a con man. He's a con man.
Is this having any effectiveness? I'm sure at the debate we're going to hear more of this con man line.
Marco Rubio is not the proper custodian of Reaganism. Reaganism is more than just about one candidate. Reaganism is about a philosophy, it's about a party, it's about a movement, it's about the American people.
And you think Trump embodies that?
No, they all embody a certain element of Reaganism in some sort of way, which is why nobody calls himself a Bush Republican. Nobody calls himself a Nixon Republican. But a lot of people call themselves Reagan Republicans because they have channeled some portion of Reagan inside of them, but none of them channeled all of Reagan inside of them.
I see. What do you make of this Never Trump social media campaign? And now it seems Mitt Romney is the chairman of the Never Trump forces.
Right.
Is this I've never seen anything like this, Craig. Certainly in my time covering politics. Have you?
Yes, in 1964.
And who was that?
Goldwater. When the establishment took a walk on Goldwater. Now, Goldwater did not help by reaching out at the convention in San Francisco at the Cow Palace and bringing in Bill Scranton and Jacob Javits and Nelson Rockefeller. He didn't help himself, that's for sure. Reagan was smarter in 1980. He reached out to the establishment elements by picking George H.W. Bush as his running mate and bringing them in and unifying the party. But still, it's a two-way street. And is that right now, if the establishment was smart, instead of denouncing Trump, they'd be reaching out to him. They'd be surrounding him with policy advisors and consultants and other, people, issue specialists who try to improve on Trump's message so he has a broader, nicer appeal.
Let's look at the delegate count. I mean, that's what we're really talking about. That's what these people should really be focusing on. Here's the delegate count as it stands now, starting with the Democrats. Hillary Clinton's at 1,054 delegates. Bernie Sanders is at 409. You flip to the Republicans now. Donald Trump, 324 delegates. Ted Cruz, 230. Marco Rubio, 111. Now, there are upcoming contests any day now.
Right.
Here's what Ted Cruz is saying. Listen to this. Tell me if this is effective, if this makes any difference. Roll that.
So long as the field remains divided, Donald Trump's path to the nomination remains more likely. And that would be a disaster for Republicans, for conservatives, and for the nation. And after tonight, we have seen that our campaign is the only campaign that has beaten, that can beat, and that will beat Donald Trump.
Is Ted Cruz the only candidate that can beat Donald Trump? Are you convinced of that argument?
I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't have the newspapers of next week. I do know in politics, Raymond, is that the way to beat an idea is with a better idea. And that if Ted Cruz is going to get back into the race, he has to formulate a better message that kind of almost out-Trumps Trump without, channeling Trump. He's got to take it in a new direction, but he's got to do it in a different sort of way so that it is appealing to Trump-like voters who may be having doubts about nominating Donald Trump, but are still frustrated about Washington and the political establishment.
Ted Cruz won Texas. What if Marco Rubio loses Florida to Donald Trump, as he is projected to do at the moment? He's ahead by 16 points.
Well, I would say that certainly that's the end of his presidential campaign. And it may be the end of his political career in Florida, because if he loses Florida to Donald Trump, and then Donald Trump goes on to lose the nomination and lose the election to Hillary Clinton, then what does that say about Marco Rubio's ability as a politician?
I forgot to play this earlier. Donald Trump's response to Mitt Romney. I want your reaction to this. Roll that.
Look, Mitt is a failed candidate. He failed. That was a race, I have to say, folks, that should have been won. That was a race that absolutely should have been won. And I backed Mitt Romney. I backed him. You can see how loyal he is. He was begging for my endorsement. I could have said, Mitt, drop to your knees. He would have dropped to his knees. He was begging. Sure.
Typical Trump. He's staying true to his character. Right. I have my own theory. Why do you think he's allowed by the electorate to say the things he does and get away with it, whereas other candidates, it doesn't wear well when they start?
Because he's defined the terms of the game. Because he's defined himself long before people started denouncing him for defining the terms. I mean, usually the game is determined by the people who have the possession of the ball on the field, and he has the ball on the field, so he gets to determine the dimensions of it, not the other people. And if you look at it, you know, what he said about Mitt Romney is that now he's got everybody laughing at Mitt Romney, which is what he wants.
Yeah. No, and earlier in his talk, he mentioned, look, Romney, not only did he come to me, he was calling me a great businessman before. Now, what happened? It does kind of taint and throw Mitt Romney on the pile of the establishment. And I imagine, again, as you said earlier, that strengthens Donald Trump.
There's a difference between Mitt Romney's loss in 2012, Reagan's loss in '76, and Goldwater's loss in '64. Goldwater and Reagan left legacies upon which to build a movement and build a party. They made voters make an investment in them because they appealed to them philosophically, patriotism, personality, however. But people were committed to Barry Goldwater and committed to a conservative philosophy. People were committed to Ronald Reagan. Nobody left 2012 having voted for Mitt Romney saying, boy, I really want him to run again. There wasn't a hue and cry for him to be a national leader. Nobody said to set up a campaign, set up a political action committee, or set up a blog or a website, or we want you to lead us into the future. Yeah. He lost and he was forgotten.
Yeah, very interesting. He really left no mark.
That's
absolutely.
An interesting insight. Yeah, like it's like he walked across the snowfield and there were no prints.
No tracks at all.
No tracks behind.
Yeah. My theory about the whole Trump phenomena. He can say things that are cutting because there was already, for 20 years, an audience expectation that this is the character of Donald Trump.
Absolutely.
So he's fulfilling the wishes of the audience on some level, whether they know it or not.
Right.
He's doing what they saw him do on television. So it makes perfect sense. It's like Don Rickles. Rickles comes in, he insults somebody. Everybody laughs and applauds. If I do it or you do it, they're like, what a jerk that Greg Shirley and Raymond Arroyo are.
Right.
Different game for Trump.
And I think also, I agree with you entirely, but I think also he's saying things that people wish they could say. He's spitting in the eye of the establishment, and people wish that they too had the power and authority to spit in the eye of the establishment.
Speaker Paul Ryan took a broadside at Trump this week, talking about, tried to bring up the racism stuff, the KKK thing that apparently Trump denounced, and then he wouldn't denounce it, and then he went back and said, I remember I did denounce it. And now, on the night of his victory during Super Tuesday, Trump had this to say about the Speaker.
I'm going to get along great with Congress, okay? Paul Ryan, I don't know him well, but I'm sure I'm going to get along great with him. And if I don't, he's going to have to pay a big price, okay?
That's what's known as a brushback pitch.
Okay. I mean, it's tough talk. He's coming out swinging.
Right.
I imagine that reinforces his appeal to those who are already in his base.
Yeah, because he's speaking against the establishment. But also, there's very interesting about that press conference is that number of things. One is, who holds a primetime press conference other than the President of the United States? But I think that he cannily wanted people to start seeing him. And he also was much calmer. He talked more. He was more solicitous. He was more magnanimous. He was more. He threw Ted Cruz
a bone.
A bone. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And also, one other thing, Raymond, is that he stopped using less first-person pronouns and started using more plurals. He started saying more we and us, and he started talking like a president instead of just a presidential candidate.
So if you had to bet today, you'd say he's going to go all the way. He's going to collect needed delegates.
An object in motion has a tendency to stay in motion, and Donald Trump is in motion right now. And the other candidates are not in motion.
Final question, this Never Trump movement, given the push toward this anti-Trump sentiment movement in the Republican Party, is that a break of that pledge that these folks would support, and they all agreed to support whoever the nominee was?
Right.
Did they break the pledge, and does this open the door to Trump possibly running third party?
I think in his mind they have broken the pledge, because in his mind the party, the RNC, are somehow behind this attempt to try to stop him or deny him. But is that you got to be careful about what you do in politics, because if he's headed toward Cleveland, toward a first ballot nomination, and through behind the scenes machinations they deny it from him, he's not going to pick up his ball and go home. He's going to run third party, and he's going to ensure that Hillary Clinton is the next president.
And what a moment. Well, this has been an unbelievable season. Craig Shirley, we hope you'll come back.
You bet.
Thank you. Craig's latest book, Last Act, The Final Years, An Emerging Legacy of Ronald Reagan, is available wherever books are sold.